In this lesson, I will teach you different hand embroidery techniques for outlines and how they work on different kinds of fabrics. For all my work, I really only use the basic embroidery techniques, and you can do a lot with them. So I will start teaching you the first basic technique, which is called basic stitch or back stitch. For that purpose, I will use an unbleached cotton fabric, which is the best to work with and which is really a primary material for embroidery. Also, I chose a drawing, and then I will also show you how to transfer the drawing onto the fabric with transferring paper. So how it works is that first on the table we position the fabric, then in between the drawing and the fabric it's the carbon transferring paper. The important thing is that the ink of the side of the paper, the black one, should be facing the fabric, and then on the top of it comes the drawing. It's easy to transfer the drawing, so you just actually follow the outlines of the drawing and then they copy directly on the fabric. You should also be very careful when you use the transferring paper, because if you press too hard, the transferring paper can make stains on the fabric. So then I will try not to do that, but in case you do it, it's easily washable and then it can be removed, so it's nothing scary. So as you can see, we transfer the drawing, and now it's the time to position the hoop. So the way how you install the hoop is that one part goes under the fabric, and the other part, so the part with the metal, goes above the fabric. So then when the fabric is in its place, you have to tighten up the screw again. And you do it as much as possible. And then you just pull the leftovers from the fabric from the sides as much as you can, because when you have a flat surface for embroidery, it's the best, so the embroidery is the easiest. So now I will choose one color from the thread, so from the mulline threads. It doesn't matter, you just chose a color, that's something that you have at home. And then the length of the thread that you need to cut should be the length of your half arm, because then when you do the moves for embroidery, it's the best, and you also don't need to cut new thread too often. Then we're cutting with the scissors. So then when we have the thread, I have to say that I almost never use the full length. I just use few strands from the thread. So I use the full length, but when we have thick fabrics or denim or wool, but for this purpose I will just use few strands. So the easiest way to remove strands from the thread is one by one. So you shouldn't try to divide them, multiply at the same time, because it's harder and at one point the thread can get tangled. So then I will just pull one by one. For this purpose I will use two, so I will just need one more. So then we keep the rest of the thread for later. So now I'm putting the two strands together. On one side of the strands we have to tie a knot. So the way you tie a knot is that you make a loop with your finger, and then the end of the thread should go inside that loop. So then you push the loop as much as you can until the end of the thread. I mean, of course, at the end it should be a space of 1 centimeter or like half. And then I always try to make 2 or 3 knots on the top of each other, so it's more secure and the thread doesn't go out from the fabric. This is also very important for clothing, because with washing the knots can go out easily, but when you have something like this, so if it's a decoration for the wall, then 1 knot should be fine. In any case, I will tie 2 knots because I always want to keep it secure. So then I just make 1 more loop. So this, if you're a beginner, it's pretty normal that if you can't position the second knot on the top of it, but after some practice, it's easier. So then we have the knot, and then I'm going back to the other end of the thread, and now I'm taking one of the needles. So here we have the pre-embroidery needles. I think they are only in 2 sizes. So the last line are the needles that are with not a sharp ending. So I usually don't use those because those are for these embroidery fabrics that are with holes, and then you don't need the needle to be sharp to go through them. But for this kind of fabrics that are not like special for embroidery, you just need the sharp needles. So I will take one. And then this is also a normal thing when you're a beginner, that maybe you can't go through the needle from the beginning, like right away. And also this is just maybe not so hygienic way, but I always have to lick a bit the thread so it comes together, especially when there are more threads. Like with 2, I think it's easier, but when there are more, for sure you have to do it. If you're a beginner, the easiest way to put the thread in the needle is to go very, very close to the end of the thread. And then you put the thread inside. And then one end of the thread is loose, and then it's shorter, and the one with the knot is on the longer side. We start with embroidery. So how the back stitch goes is, so at the beginning maybe you always have to look from the back of the fabric, and the good stuff is that with this kind of fabric you can always see it through. So then if it's easier for you, you can just try to follow the line from the back. And then you put the needle like 5 centimeters around. It can be also 3, 4, or 6, but just like a small space after the beginning of the line. So now we go back in the end, the beginning of the line. So then the second move, so guys, for me it's easy because somehow I have the sense where the line is, and I can just do this from behind without watching. But if it's easier for you, you can always follow the line from behind. The next move is that you have to put the needle exactly in the hole where the other stitch ended, and then it goes through. And now we just continue like that. If you're a beginner, it's normal that the stitches won't be with the same length, but that's fine. That's really with practice, and I think it's also looking cute when not all the stitchings are the same. It's nice when you go into the same hole. Like, it can happen also at the beginning that you miss the hole and then there is space between. That's fine, but I like it when they're next to each other. It looks more clean. Also, the spaces of the stitches, the length, it can be also bigger or smaller. That really depends on you, and it's really like handwriting. So some people are writing with tiny letters, some with bigger, so it's also fine whatever it feels right for you, how to do the length of the stitches. So now, after we finished with the stitching, I mean, we have a bit more, but just we don't have thread anymore, so we have to tie a knot so the embroidery is secure. So the way we tie a knot is, even this is a small part, so maybe if you're a beginner, it will be also hard to work with this length of the thread, but maybe keep it a bit longer. But the way how to tie a knot is that you make a loop, and then the end of the thread should go inside that loop. And now when you have the loop, you just press the loop as much as you can till the end of the fabric. This is also for beginners. Maybe it's a bit harder because the knot, probably it will be a bit up, but that's fine. So this is also practice. Practice do miracles. So then for another knot, we will just repeat the process. And I will also try to get the knot to the same position, so then it's like a double knot and it's more secure. So you just push the knot with your fingers very close to the fabric. We don't need such a long extension of the thread, so we will cut it around 5 to 10 millimeters after the knot. And now we'll just continue embroidering the inside part. For that, I will just pull out 2 more strands from the thread. So then again, we put them together. And then we put them inside the needle. And then on the end, again we tie a knot. Again, so we make a loop. The end of the thread should go in that loop. And then we push the loop towards the end of the thread. And then we continue the same thing. So again. And we try to position it above, over the last knot. Now we continue with embroidering the inside part. So you can also start from the beginning of the line and then you go in front. And then for the next line, you just go 5 millimeters after the last stitch. And then you go in the last point. So now, after we finished, again, I will tie a knot in the back. So I'm making a loop, and then the needle goes into the loop. And then I push the knot till the end of the fabric. So again, we make a loop, and then the needle goes inside. And then we push the loop towards the fabric. So now we are removing this fabric out of the hoop.